A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for making time and joining us tonight on the agenda. My name is Toibonjabela. Tonight on the show we are joined by Dr. Job Amupanda. He's an activist and he has been in the news lately pursuing a matter that seems to be very close to his heart, and that is a case involving the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Itah Kandjii-Murangi. Thank you, Doctor, for making time. It's always a pleasure having you on the platform. This matter of the minister, you are saying there's so much evidence that you are sitting on, so much evidence of abuse and corruption. The Anti-Corruption Commission comes out and says, you know, they are satisfied, there are plausible reasons why these things have been happening. What is your take?
Well, I think it's also firstly very important to set the context so that the viewers at home and everybody else can understand what is actually happening. And this is the mere symptoms of what has been allowed to continue for a long time. And in Oshiwambo, there's a saying that Nakwarumbo hoi niso pantu. It basically means that's one angle. The other angle of that saying, it has to do with the fact that the culture of any organization or a country or a society is determined by the worst behavior that the leader is willing to tolerate. So if you have a child that likes to shit around all over the place, one day you go with that child in church and they will jump on top of the altar and then start shitting there in front of the congregation and everybody else, and God will be very angry. So what we are actually experiencing with this lady, with this madam, is something that has been allowed for a long time. And it's just completely amazing, whatever it is that she has on whoever. I mean, it's just amazing that it has been allowed for a long time. Mm. In fact, before even this issue, because you could clearly see that the very narrow interpretation, there's actually two narrow interpretation of events. One is a narrow legalistic interpretation, which I'll come to, and the other one is a narrow interpretation of the issues. For instance, one of the issues that we're dealing with is the default or the DBN loan, for instance. No one is actually asking, what was this loan about? Okay, you hear it's a loan to buy a vehicle. Can I go to DBN and get a loan to buy a vehicle? Think about it. Mm. And then you don't pay as a minister, then you default, and you are taken to court. All these things are all kept under the wrap. No one knows about it, and you fail to pay, and you negotiate a settlement that is not available to other Namibians, that actually tantamount to getting a discount, some sort of sale that is a DBN there of about 2 million. I've been engaging with DBN. I wrote to them. Of course, by the time I'm writing to them, I already have all the information. I know whom she was sending SMSs to on this to relax so that they don't go after her and the assets as per those court documents and the judgment. And I also know what was the benefit in exchange. So in other words, this in the document that I released today, I go in great details to define gratification. What does it mean? It means any money, any loan, any favor, any other things that you could get from another person. So I know for sure that even with that DBN loan, there's some gratification. So some scratch your back, I scratch mine. So it seems this is how this lady has been running the higher education sector. Yeah. So part of the problem, this corruption that we're dealing with is part of a bigger problem of one individual that they have created a serious mess. Higher education have never been unstable like that. In fact, historically, we had episodes where there were challenges and problems in the higher education sector. For instance, at one point, the Minister of Higher Education and the Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, Peter Kachavivi and Naha Sangula, were not seeing eye to eye, but on issues of principle. But those differences have never led to the collapse of the sector, to a situation where you have Council of Higher Education shambles there, NTA, a guy gets interviewed, wins, is number one, and this lady just decides that she's not allowing it. And the guy leaves and go to Namdia. She seconds somebody again from her ministry to go there for some time, ask them to do certain things. It doesn't happen, and then get rid of that guy. And many things like that. Council that is dysfunctional. The University of Namibia had a temporary council, maybe about close to a year or two even. And NAST is the same. We are limping from one council that is in the paper to another one that is interim. It is a very bad mess, NQA and all the entire sector is very, very problematic. But you ask a specific question with regards to the ACC. And in fact, in my essay that I released this morning, I'm actually cautioning Namibians about that problem. And I'm saying the ACC Act was introduced in 2003.
Yeah.
But are we saying in 2000 Namibians didn't know about what corruption is in 1999, in 1992? Are we saying that corruption only comes with the ACC? That's a very narrow legalistic view of the issues that we're dealing with. Principally, our society as Africans, as Namibians, we always understood that corruption leads to a social loss. Yeah, it places us as a collective into a disadvantage. That basically means that which belongs to all of us, somebody abuses the position of trust for personal gain. It could be the personal gain, it could be the gain of the relative, it could be the gain of the associate, or the gratification of the other. So we cannot have a conversation as a country and it starts and ends with Noah and the ACC. That would be a serious defeat. So we must also be able to ask ourselves and understand, because the problem, if you start dealing with corruption and you begin and end with Noah, that basically means that the church has no role to play. It basically means that us as academics, we have no responsibility to be alive to look at what could potentially be the future corrupt officials, because these people who end up having jobs in government, apart from the children of liberation struggle and politicians, the government bureaucracy generally is that you enter through some sort of minimum requirement. So in other words, the people that we're training in institution of higher learning would potentially become executive directors. They will become the Van Kent, sweating and running up and down for another person's corruption. So when we think that corruption begins and ends with Noah, like how we was talking in your show and other places, that means we have lost it, because everybody else would not have responsibility. The parents will not have responsibility to engage their children and just begin to say, but the way how this one handles himself, the way how I give them money to buy bread and he just go and buy hot dogs for himself, but not the bread that have many slices that they can share with the siblings. You see, those attributes. So I'm saying, and that's why I can see that it has not fossilized in Noah's mind, and that same crusade of anti-corruption and many other people who think we must reason like that. It is not enough to report corruption. It is enough. We need to be able to actually lead the national conversation. I'm more interested in fact, I'll be comfortable not reporting corruption to the ACC, but the majority of Namibians are alarmed at the conduct, and they can decipher from the evidence provided that this is not good, this is not what we want. Because you can't, on one hand, be saying today that this conduct is bad, and you go do the same at Namibian Sun the following day, you see. So who takes the responsibility? Do we have the ACC going out, engaging the young people on the dangers of corruption? We are there on Twitter engaging young people. It's a point of discussion on Facebook, on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and everywhere. Of course, people who think very, very narrow will not understand the importance of what we are doing. Yeah. So that is quite very important. Now, the Now, with regards to what the ACC is saying and what, I don't actually want to give much premiums to it. I had time to, when I read the statement, because the statement didn't have a stamp, it didn't have a name, it didn't have the contact person, so I was actually wondering what was happening until I had actually to verify that it is actually a statement from the ACC. That's one. Two, he confirmed on one of your shows that he released that statement. That's when I actually realized we are sitting with a serious problem. So the issue of corruption and the facts regarding to a particular case under study is not a matter of opinion. Yeah? Yeah. It is a matter of, first of all, beginning to understand that Chapter 4, for instance, of the ACC Act provides for corrupt practices. What is it that is corrupt practices? And in my essay, I was spending a lot of time explaining gratification. And you have a gratification itself, so you must understand what that concept means, because it's an element. The other element is that it's a public official. Yeah. Third, this public official must use the office, and listen to the words, directly or indirectly, yeah, to obtain gratification for yourself or another person. You see? So in other words, it can be two things. It could be you as a public official doing something for your benefit, directly or indirectly. Yeah. For instance, so if a PA writes a letter to the executive director saying, this is the amount of money that we need, where can we find it, and all this, who's actually writing? It's a personal assistant, not a civil servant, a personal assistant, yeah, who works at the behest of the person. His personal assistant, you could actually be sent out to go and buy lunch. We have seen cases where bodyguards and PAs have been sent to pick up girls, you know, and to do all sorts of things. So we understand personal assistants as individuals that are assigned to a public officials in this case, and they are doing whatever it is that they are doing at the caprice, at the direction, at the control, yeah, of the principal, yeah, that controls them. So it is not about what Noah says, and of course we are concerned about what Noah says, and I'll just demonstrate in a moment why we are concerned. But it's, forget about what this man is saying. So a particular conduct, you know, on one hand, the facts before us and the law, yeah, do they correspond? To me, if they correspond, it's irrelevant what Noah says. So we must be able, we actually need to get to a point where we are battling with Noah on the facts, and that doesn't happen.
Let me catch you there. So Noah is saying that he's justifying some of these things with the fact that apparently you're not collaborating with him. He's saying they sought some sort of sworn affidavits from you and you wouldn't help them, and they're saying you are not actually genuine in your fight to fight corruption, because you could have then brought your part in pursuing this matter.
Well, I welcome the confidence, but let's look at the sequence of events. I think there was a former executive director of the ACC. He made a comment. I don't know Tate Shipena Hanu. I only read about him. I've never spoken to him. But I think he have heard Mr. Noah, because, I mean, I was just sitting at home. I woke up through a headline and it says that give the budget to Job because the ACC doesn't. I think really he must have been hurt by, I'm just trying to benefit of the doubt to try actually to understand why is it that the Director General of the ACC will go to great lengths to, you know what it actually means? It's like in football. You have a midfielder, such as Chouameni or Tony Kroos. That's a formidable guy, who usually kick the ball, and defensive midfielder. So this guy takes the ball, turn around, look at the goal, just run alone. Yeah. Everyone is shocked, from the coach, from the teammate, and he really goes there and score against his own. You must actually wonder, and actually, how is it that the midfielder would turn around and score own goals like that? Then the only thing I could think of is that he must probably be hurt by the statement that the former ED of the ACC made, because he simply just said, look, Namibians, you won't get value for money in this thing, and he had to defend.
It's a very serious indictment.
Yes, I mean, because he sat there, he knows what they did, he knows what they didn't do, and I guess maybe he think because I'm the subject, because people are saying it must come to me, they think that I'm the one who's maybe responsible. So he think that, but that's the problem. It's a national matter, and you make it about Job and Hanu and Noah. It shouldn't be like that. So I get a missed call. I mean, if I just give you my phone now, you would see that I have I have 500 messages there. So I don't have, I'm not like the type of person that, this is just WhatsApp messages that are unread, 444 as you can see, normal text. People are writing to me every time. So this idea, thinking that you try to call me or you send me an SMS, I must somehow run because you are whoever it is.
How did that process unfold?
Well, I got a message, somebody from the ACC wanted to speak to me, and I said, oh, okay. I actually never refused. It's still a lie. I even ran a poll. I was asking young people to say, what do you think I must do? Must I give them an invoice or must I do it for the country? I'm sure you might have seen that. What I actually told the men who were sent, I said, okay, look, I'm busy with this thing and many other things. And because I have had experience where I've gone to the ACC and you submit the evidence, they either say two things. They say, no, these are administrative things, go to court. That's one. Or they will say, they just close the file, because there are two levels of investigation. There's a preliminary investigation. You know, I can actually lay a complaint against Toivo. They just speak to few people around Toivo. They don't even speak to Toivo. Then they just conclude that, no, these are preliminary. Toivo had a basis of doing whatever it is that he did, without even talking to Toivo. What if Toivo was going to admit that they were wrong? So with that type of experience, so I said, because preliminary investigation on the basis of a complaint, and just preliminary scratching on the surface, they close the file. Yeah? Because what's actually supposed to happen is that on balance of probabilities, from the preliminary investigation, you then go to a full investigation, yeah, to go all out and check all those things. So then they closed the file. I wrote back to Noah and said, but I don't agree that with the reasoning that you are using. Can you at least proceed to full investigation? Yeah? Then you can close the file there. I'll be okay. Yeah? No, the ACC decision still stands, okay? Then I said, okay, fine. Let me then get the documents that you used in your investigation, yeah, to understand as a complainant. For me to understand the basis of your decision, which I don't agree with. No, that I can only give you the document when you go to court. You see? Now, this becomes your experience. And just because there's something in the media, and you probably do it just to go and say that we have reached out to a person, you come back to the same person and you say, can you please come in and give us a statement and all those. I said, I never refused. I just said, okay, you know my experience with you guys. I'm willing to assist you on condition and provided that you are going to do a full investigation on this matter. If you are going to do full investigation, I'm going to give you. And I've been proven right. This man speaks to one guy. He speaks to one guy who have left, who probably, on the basis of what he's saying, he only gave him maybe 5% of the information. He speaks to one guy and he says the lady is innocent.
Is that Dr. Van Kent now?
Yes.
In this case?
Yeah, he speaks to Van Kent, who's a subordinate, because I was even sending a message to Van Kent and saying, because you see, Van Kent they have an abusive relationship with the minister. The minister is always shouting at him like a small child. So, and he's unable, because I mean, even normal course of action, the minister shouted at him, and you know, sometimes he's stressed, and he goes to his friend, and he's saying, "No, I'm an old man, but this woman treats me like a small baby," you know, and he's been shouted at like that. But those are their personal issues. But this is the point I'm trying to make. If Van Ken can be shouted and prevailed upon like a small baby, do you think he's going to say anything contrary on the matter that is more serious? When he can be shouted or at by the minister if there are not enough biscuits in the minister's boardroom, what do you think about issues that has to do with invoices and things like that? So I was proven right.
Let's go on a break, a quick one, and then we return with Dr. Job Amupanda.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
We continue the conversation with Dr. Job Amupanda. So, what are the specific issues, Doc, that I know that you have shared quite a lot of information about your concerns about the minister, but the basis of your argument is that she's been going around to SOEs and under her, asking them to pay for her travels and stuff like that. Some have argued there's nothing wrong. ACC in fact said, yeah, it's some arrangement between the sister institutions. I mean,
Maka Tiger. Maka Tiger will bring it tomorrow.
Maka Tiger. Yeah.
No, okay, we'll come to that. But I was saying that this whole notion that I refused is actually a lie. Yeah. My condition was that because of that experience, I said, if you are going to do a full investigation, I'll cooperate with you. I'll provide you with all the information because I don't want you to use me and my information and you don't do an investigation and you close the file.
But
because that has been my experience. But I was proven right.
Yeah.
How? Because Van Kent, who's traumatized by the minister, visits visits the NOAA office, and he gives only few information, just the letters of correspondence.
Convenient documents.
Quickly, just maybe on his table. Then NOAA declared the minister innocent. You see. Now what was going to happen? So I'm the one, he needed somebody and something to use in order to declare the minister innocent. You see, it could, fortunately it's not me this time that they can use and say the information at the ACC disposal, we close the file. I have documentary evidence where these things has happened like that. So that is just to dispel this myth that, of course, I don't have confidence because of my experience, and also because, which is the point that I'm driving home here, that look, it is important for these things to be in the public because we need to have a national conversation. So why would you get angry when the public is having conversation about corruption? We should actually celebrate the fact that that's something that's supposed to happen. I also explained, I think it's in section 21 or so, in my essay, that ACC is empowered to do their own investigation. They don't need to be told. Who went to the ACC for them to investigate who's the guy at NAMCO? No, there is no complainant there, the ACC. They by themselves decided to do that. But I don't think we must, this bureaucratic interpretation of the ACC should actually be the one to that we spend a lot of time and give a lot of premium to. You ask a specific question. What is the basis of the argument that I'm making? Now, this is the problem that we are having here. Public enterprises. Even before we had Public Enterprises Governance Act, we had State-Owned Enterprise Governance Act. Yeah? Where, what is the man? Franz Shehammer used to be is it the PS or executive director? Yeah. We always had a governance architecture for public enterprises. It's not new. Now, those institutions are independent institutions with independent governance framework, with individuals charged with fiduciary responsibilities to do that. That's one. On the other hand, you also have governance, you have public finance approaches, public finance framework. Yeah. So what we must actually just analyze, and not listen to the nonsense of some arrangements, we must just actually analyze on what basis do you ask an SOE to pay for a trip of the minister? It does not matter whether you met or you are a line ministry or whatever it is. On what legal basis? Because these are the same people who are telling us that the Republic of Namibia, in terms of Article 1, is found on the basis of the rule of law. This is the question that must be answered. Yeah? On what basis, first of all, do you request for these funds? Yeah? That's on one hand. Number two, on what basis that the institution that is giving money, on what basis does it give them? There are employees, I can tell you, in some of these SOEs who are having financial problems. They simply ask and say, can you give me this amount of money?
It's an advance.
Yes. So that you can deduct it from my own salary next month. You see? The answer is that no, we don't do that. It's not in policy. Or we have stopped that. So all these institutions have S&T policy. Against what budget vote? Where did you take this money? Did you take it from the salaries? Did you take it from consumables? Where did you actually take it? How does it work in that same framework? So the first, what we are actually dealing with here is that conduct constitutes an unauthorized expenditure. And you could see that Section 43 says you abuse your office for gratification. You could see that. You must also remember there are certain conduct, because they are clear cut where you simply, as an editor or as a mayor or as a councillor, you simply just abuse your office right away. But my argument is also that, it's my considered opinion, is that there are also other conducts that would actually lead to gratification. Okay? So when we look at all this unauthorized expenditure, let's start with the first leg that I was dealing with. Look, it's no longer in doubt. The minister responsible for public enterprises already confirmed that there's no basis. There is no legal provision within PEGA or otherwise that SO is to pay for minister's trip. What does it mean? We must interpret it, integrate. What does the statement of Ipumbushimi means? It basically means that the conduct is not protected by law. If it's not protected by law, it's protected by what? You know? So let's name it for what it is. It's an unauthorized expenditure. Worse, for those institutions that they have finance policy, they have all those. I mean, I know UNAM policies, I know NAST policy, I know NTA policies. In fact, I can tell you now, NASFAF has done the same payment. But of course, Van Kent doesn't go and disclose these things to no one. For clear reasons. I mean, they are looking for somebody to defend, and that's what will happen. So at the first level, we are dealing with unauthorized expenditure that has effectively led to what? To gratification. Yeah. So operating out of the law in order to facilitate gratification of the head of the Casa Nostra, it basically means that it's a conduct that has led to gratification. So this particular conduct of an unauthorized expenditure has led to the contravention, in my view, of Section 43 of the SAC Act. That's one. Number two, I mean, I just don't, you see, we are even told about the national, I know, for example, that the National Commission for UNESCO is headed by the Executive Committee. Get the evidence that suggests that the money that they paid to the minister has been authorized by the Executive Committee. You won't find the evidence to that effect. They didn't. The actual truth is that apparently she was having some problems in the hotels there in America, and then they made WhatsApp calls or they SMS each other, and these people send the money. How do you explain that? What the question that no one is asking, if the media did well to write about that, this amount of money was paid and the letter has been produced to that effect. But no one is actually interrogating and asking, what was the purpose of this money?
Which one now?
The one from the National Commission. You see?
Of course it was to replace, it was supposed to be an interim arrangement to say I'm in trouble. Those who invited me have not paid my money yet. can you step in quickly?
Okay.
I'll refund you.
Now that's a $1,000 from the UNESCO in Paris.
Yes.
I can put it to you that there was an advance payment of 78 or 75, between 75 and 78,000. I would have to check my documents. An advance payment.
But there's information that we published in the Namibian Sun that suggests that after the official UNESCO mission ended in New York, she stayed. It ended on the 7th of March this year, and she needed to be in New York until the 12th of March. We haven't been able to make a breakthrough and find out what those extra days were for, and we are told now that that extra payment was for that.
You see, look, first of all, what was happening, the tickets were bought. The tickets were bought. They were not happy that they're not business class. Okay? The tickets were bought. She arrived late at the airport. They had to buy other tickets. So there's some expenditure that is ordered, but that's not, those things happen to all of us. But this is what I'm saying. So, the S&T, the UN is paying her the DSA, right? That's what you are being paid for. What is the equivalent of DSA? Now, I can tell you that the National Commission for UNESCO gave her money. The ministry gave her money also. I think that claim I had even produced it is to the tunes of 120,000, and UNESCO. So are you saying that she's entitled to all that she has received? Absolutely not, okay? But it gets worse. Now, why is it that the National Commission, if these are all internal arrangement, why is it that the minister must personally pay back that money? Ask yourself this question. You see, the UNAM or the NAST ministry equation is this. Look, we can't variment, that's the argument, that we can't variment money. It's short notice. Can you give us, we'll pay back the money. Okay, fine. Why is it that she must pay back personally and not the ministry that must pay back to NATCOM?
Yeah, but there is because she was paid personally that $1,000 by UNESCO in Paris.
Yes.
It's her personal money. Once it was paid in her account, it's her personal money.
Yes.
And because she used it up, then she needed. She has to pay it back because the UNESCO money was private money. Once it was paid into your account, it's your private money.
Yes, absolutely.
Therefore, NATCOM, you have to pay it back yourself because you are replacing this private UNESCO money with the private money that you have.
Aha, okay.
Yes.
So, according to the ovation, she has to pay back personally because the funds were utilized for personal purposes.
You said it correctly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it basically means then you can use your money to buy your wigs and other things, and then a government, a public money can be paid to you. You can actually, you see, that's why I want for you to make a distinction. For you to make a distinction between NAST money, although we know that is for the church event, NAST money and the ministry, saying, look, our minister is going, we don't have money now, can you give us the money, we are going to pay you back. Let's understand that that's a completely different categorization. Yeah. Here, the person Zula and hustles from government. Yeah?
Yeah?
That's why she has to pay back personally.
Yes.
Because the expenses are personal. You see, that's why when you just understand, that's why we are saying that you must do a comprehensive investigation and go in details of all these things. That's why I'm saying people are not actually, when you actually find out what this money was for, and this is a problem, that what provision, we already know that even that's something is not acceptable, but it appears to have logic to say, give money, we know it's illegal, it's an unauthorized expenditure, but here, this is pure corruption. Because you want to buy a hot dog in New York, and you don't have money, you organize quickly for them to send you money so that you can come and pay back.
You see, my issue, Doc, in principle, I agree with you. What I think is the problem with the NATCOM issue is, I think there are two levels. The first one is whether the payment was legal. Because you mentioned, for example, that the executive committee did not approve that. That makes it problematic, because there's nothing in principle wrong with saying, look, I'm stuck here in New York, can the executive committee heed my call? If they said yes and then they approve, nothing wrong.
So she can send a WhatsApp to another minister or another friend or any relative.
I think the alternatives are many. Maybe that is one of them.
Yes.
So the problem is if she did not get that permission. The second one is the allegation that she did not pay back
Yes, absolutely.
that money.
At two levels, actually, and that takes me to the third issue.
Yeah.
That she didn't pay back, unless she, maybe, I guess they are trying to organize now to pay back. But I mean, whatever you do, truth will never hide. It will always surface on the very top. Now, we would always know when that payment was made. We'll see the date. But this is a problem, okay? Now, you also say, no, the minister is going to accompany the president to Jamaica and Cuba. Jamaica and Cuba. This is how much it's going to cost. We don't have money. UNAM must mark a tiger there. Eh? UNAM give us the money and then UNAM give the money. Now, the Cuban trip gets cancelled. So, if there was no Cuba, the amount was probably going to be 200,000 or 90 or whatever it is. Yeah? The amount became 300 or whatever the amount is because there's Cuba and there is Jamaica. Now, Cuba is removed from the equation, but you still get the money. So the payment, the repayment is not just as far as the NATCOM is concerned, but also Cuba. The trip didn't take place. Did she pay back? Yes or no? You would see the statement that was released by Van Kent. He was saying the accounting officer can recoup and what. We don't want that story. Is this a straightforward, the person paid back or not? Not to tell us that you have those rights. You can. Yeah. But this is exactly the problem that we are also having. And the implication is that there are people who are teaching public finance to students at NAST and at UNAM. The lecturers and the professors are actually saying this is how public finance work. Okay? These are the general accounting principles. This is exactly what you know, there's even something that is called tertiary instruction. Yes. You know, these guys are saying, okay, they make illegal arrangement for SOEs to pay. They also pays the expenses directly out there. Then they later come around and ask the ministry to refund. Remember, there's no lawful arrangement. It's just letters that have been written there. Now, the procurement laws or the treasury instructions, for example, in my essay, I make provision to those specific ones. Yeah. Actually say before you could even indicate, you don't just pay back because you had borrowed the money. Yeah. It must speak to the system, not you what you have done, but the institutions must work. So there's many provisions there that has been violated to that effect. This whole thing is just bad, but you see, it basically means that maybe this is what all of them do. Maybe, how do we know that the president doesn't borrow from ministries? How do we know that the president doesn't borrow from MIDCO? Yeah. How do we know that maybe Nangolo Mbuba doesn't borrow from Council for Traditional Authorities? So the problem is just that now, there is now going to be a growing body of tendencies and behavior that prevent a serious theoretical problems. Because is this, if the government would have said that no, this is wrong, this is what we are doing, we're not talking about isolated ministers, then those lecturers could tell the student and say, no, that is an exception, it's not a norm. Yeah. It's not the rule. But now we coexist with this arrangement that Noah calls it, this arrangement in the bureaucracy, where we actually been told that the public enterprises, in other words, all of us that work for these institutions, maybe we are civil servants, maybe our pension is also with GIPF. Yeah. So it is very problematic.
Let me ask you this question before we go on our last break, if you can summarize it in one minute. People, I want you to draw a clear distinction, because you spoke about Jamaica here. And when you spoke about these things, people started talking about your trip to Jamaica as, I think, as last year or so. Yeah. As a councillor of the state of Windhoek. What makes your Jamaican trip holier?
Well, I think generally I look at myself as an activist, but I think I've now begun to understand that a lot of people have confidence in me. In that I'll demonstrate. So people are talking about a cabinet minister, a member of parliament, and you elevate a councillor to the same. So what would be wrong for a trip in Jamaica? and versus the minister. The difference is that, well, in Jamaica, I ended up representing the country and leading conversations about what should happen as far as our cooperation is concerned. So I was a big magogo there. And I don't think when the minister was in Jamaica, she was just, I think, being served tea there. But she was not leading the conversation. That's the difference between the two. But I guess that's on the lighter note. Look, there is no allegation or argument being made that city police or some other things that are under me have paid me double dipping. There is no story that I couldn't pay my hotel in Jamaica and I SMS some other people to organize money for me. So that's a fundamental. But generally, people can be trivial. I mean, whenever they are talking to me and about me, they place me always there. So I expect that. But it's not something that we must actually place any premium to it. I think if there's anybody with an allegation, I'll be prepared to do that. And it's also a lazy way of doing things. Something wrong has happened, and then you try to find an equivalence, things that don't have it. People are talking about conversation about maybe villages that are developing. People are talking about Omarala, and then you are talking about Okalongo in the same sentence. It can be the same. So, but generally, you always have those. There's a mob that is mobilized to defocus and to create an alternative narrative. But I don't think we should necessarily give. So to say that if anyone has an issue about anything, I travel to many countries. I've gone to Ecuador, to Jamaica. I can't even recall some countries that I've been everywhere. But if there's anybody who could find an issue with SNT, so I encourage them to run to Noah, and I'm sure Noah will be very happy to jump on that bandwagon. So, but this is a problem.
We go for a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, we go for the last break and then return for the last part.
Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
We are now in the last part of the show with Dr. Amupanda. So, Doc, I think you have unpacked the entire scandal that is unfolding before our eyes. I need to ask you a series of questions. The first one is, are you pursuing this minister because you have issues, personal issues with her? People have spoken about, for example, the fact that you had previously publicly alleged that she stopped you from joining the board of the NCSRT. I can't, it's a very long thing there. Is this you hitting back?
Well, I think I have now begun to understand that there are certain things that I need to spend my time responding to, taking seriously, because I think I never knew that you can actually be tired and fatigued mentally. In my head, because one day I was speaking to the doctor and he was saying, you can actually be stressed while you are just dancing and laughing. You don't know, but what is happening internally there. So I always just think the burden is like when you are carrying 50 kg of cement and things like that. So I've now gotten to understand the importance of taking care of one's mind, one's mental health. Because if you end up responding to there are people who actually want to have me engaging and responding to all those things. So even assuming that I had a problem with a lady, she's a public official. So it's, in other words, if I go and we fight each other now, and I go and steal a car, and then you raise the issue that Job has stolen a car, for somehow my decision to steal, my action to steal, become lesser because we fought with Toivo. That's intellectual laziness, generally what people say. You see, at the personal level, I don't just go around having battles and fights. I always give people a benefit of the doubt. I went to length even to, my issues with the ministers are not secret, everybody knows about them. In fact, I even wrote an article. The title of the article is Rebuilding Higher Education After the Departure of Kandjii-Murangi. And the essence of the article is to say that, look, our sector in higher education is in the mess with this lady. And from the indicators are that she has a very close relationship with Grootman. For all we know, she might be Grootman's favorite. So we must accept that we are going to live with this person. So let's just think and prepare for the future. That's one. Number two, I had even written an article maybe 5 years ago about higher education and the creation of zombies. So I remember at one point I had a conversation with the Vice Chancellor, and it almost got heated because he was asking me about why would you utilize the word zombie, for example. I said, no, but that's an intellectual word. It's the historical context from Haiti, where it comes from, the zombies and the Boko. So we were arguing like that. So my issue with a lack of leadership, with poor leadership, with the toxic leadership of Minister Kandjii-Murangi is not a secret. It is something that I have laid bare. I don't battle underground. So everyone knows that I don't have a good opinion of her for quite a number of reasons. In fact, one of the articles about rebuilding higher education, I was even writing and saying, she was a dean of students at the University of Namibia and I was the SRC president. So we would confront each other on some of those inadequacies, and I was hoping that because of that experience she would have learned. So the battle that I have with her, the same battle that I used to battle when I was SRC president at the University of Namibia, where we changed quite a lot of things, because at one point they had actually misappropriated the funds of the SRC, and because they used to approve our budget, so they would just spend money without us. And then one day Nikki Mutenda, he works for DBN now, he was my SRC vice president, so we went to print out and we actually see what they were spending on the SRC budget. And I wrote to Zach Kazapwa, he was a PVC admin in finance, and said, no, this is fraud, we are going to go to the police. Kazapwa intervened and said that from now on, it's only the SRC president and the bazaar who could write. So at that moment, so we dealt with her and how she was misappropriating our funds as a SRC. And that's how we bought the furnitures in 2009, because now at that moment I could just sign a lot of the needs of students that they were blocking as a dean of students. So it is not a secret that I have a problem with this lady's leadership style, but it would be foolish for anybody to think that just because I have a problem with you, I would somehow, because I'm battling with you, I would somehow stop. No, absolutely. In fact, the fact that I'm battling you because of your problems that you have, it should actually give me more motivation to fight on, because it means you are continuing with this time. The issue, for example, of the NCRST, it's a matter, I mean, I've even read in correspondence, I've read letters that I wrote to the president, and the president wrote back to me, and I was telling the president that, look at, you are telling us about system, processes, and institution. Look at what this lady is doing. She writes, I go for look, what had actually happened, I was invited by the CEO's forum for me to be a keynote address. And then I told them that, look, I don't have confidence in these stories of boards and how these things are happening. So because you guys as SOEs are political stooges, and I don't see you playing a role in the developmental state that we want. So it was a drumbos there. And I explained, so Leon Joste, who was a minister of public enterprise, was speaking next. Then he said, no, we are changing things now. That's why we are advertising. Even if a job applies, I would not have a problem. So I took Leon Joste to task. I applied, they shortlisted me. I went for an interview. I became number 2 in those interviews. So when Itah says so that I'm number 2, she wrote a letter to Joste. Say, can you please help me so that I can remove this guy? So I got hold of the letter and I wrote to her that what you are doing is corruption. And then after that was because she was replacing me with people that are not even interviewed. So then unfortunately Leon Joste left, Mpumbushimi came. She went now to even find another alternative to replace with another person again who didn't apply. And she, in her cabinet submission that I have seen, she says job must be replaced with this guy because this guy is his senior at work. Can you imagine something like that? So it's not a secret. I have engaged the president. I have written to all of them. I have engaged the ACC previously on all these things. It's not a secret. I battle with this lady openly, just like I battle with many other people. In fact, I'll be battling with many other people the same. I battle with pension funds and I battle with everyone. So the little intellectual laziness is not something that we need to give premiums to, but since you are a journalist, you're asking a question, yes. I have to respond to it, but it's not really something that I take to heart, because I'm very serious about my mental health. I'm very serious about things that I cannot give, particularly now when you are preparing to take over the country. So you have to be very careful with what you spend your time with.
Yes. So the last question, and it will probably also eat into your mental health, is also this consistent notion that you are selective in what corruption battles you tackle. Some people have said those that see other corruption cases not being tackled, is their responsibility as citizens to take them on. But in your case, are you selective in what corruption battles do you take on? Do you, like almost all of us, find yourself in situations where a particular thing you are just compromised in some way, and therefore you would rather prefer someone else to take that battle? Or are you a guy that says, where there is corruption, I'll put my head and squeeze myself there?
So, well, generally what happens is it's like in football. You always have people have negative opinions, and people shout and shout and shout, and some of them boo the players and things like that. The player is not too concerned about the shouting that is happening there, and the coach the same. So I mean, a lot of people have opinions about few things, and somebody would just say, yeah, why are you only focusing on corrupt women? It's a anti-woman thing, and all those things. So who do I actually listen to in their critique of my work? You understand? So there are those who design the military uniform, and there are those that get the military uniform and die, go to war and die. There are those that cook and those that eat. I'm concerned about social engineering. The debate on the output, there's an input, there's a process, and there's the output, okay? So you need to be able to actually understand what is happening. But maybe to give a benefit of the doubt, maybe I must also listen. Maybe people are saying, you are the only one that we have. Can you please address this one? And they think maybe I'm too slow, and that's why they are saying we are selective. Because, I mean, generally, if you see that the person is selective on this one, you must immediately get into it. That's what I would have done. If I see that the person is not focusing on that, I would immediately do that. You actually have these things in Oshuambo called, people think it's a negative word, but it's not a negative word. It's just actually nufuningirwa. It basically means that the organ that just after you chew and you do everything, it just for its responsibility just to release. So everything has been done already for you. So this idea that job is the TV and you must sit in your sitting room and just, why you are not focusing on this one? Why are you not focusing on this one? Why are you not? And why you are focusing on what? Going to the toilet and having many kids all over the place from different mothers. So I think I do hear, because I mean, you can't just not listen. I do hear what is basically happening. So I'm actually even thinking that even when we are taking over the country, we need to have people who are fighting corruption and checking. Maybe the ministers that are going to be appointing, maybe some of them are corrupt. You never know. I mean, you only learn about people later. I mean, I've been taking care of people, giving them salaries all over them, just for them to turn around to say you are the most horrible person. So you never know. We still need to have people who are fighting corruption, even when we take over the country. So I'm actually thinking maybe what I can take positively from that, perhaps we don't need to have a job. Perhaps we need to have an institution. Because when I'm in, you even hear some people, you are always going into the north. Why are you only in Zambezi? Yeah, and somebody was even having a critique. Yeah, Lucato is not the only smaller party that you are helping. Why are you not helping Christian Democratic Voice? You see. So in other words, but that maybe come from a point of a good place, because they expect you to score many goals. They expect you to bring a lot of food. They expect you to confront this and this. But because there's nobody, including themselves, they themselves, when a person says this person is selective, they are already expressing their inadequacy. They know that it's themselves, their families, their girlfriends, their circles. Alice, all those guys in the group, well, if, for example, you have 100 friends, you are actually declaring a vote of no confidence in all your friends. But this guy, if he's not selective, if he's focused on everything, then everything is going to. So you must also hear hope in this person and hopelessness, because remember, hope and hopelessness sometimes operate at the same level. This person is hopeless in themselves and the society and the institution, yeah, but they are also having hope in you. That's why they are very critical of you, because what if I address what they want to be addressed? They will be happy, isn't it? It's something that makes them unhappy. So the highest tree catches the most wind always. Unfortunately, well, it's me, people have faith in me, but it's not something that I enjoy, because I think I have 2 boys. So if I'm not there anymore, I mean, you think all these guys are happy. They are busy organizing. They can do anything, but of course they have to be prepared, because if you're going to shoot and you miss, I would definitely have a bullet on you also. So, but what then happened to my kids if we only focus on job? So we need to build stronger institutions so that we no longer have to rely on job and analyze whether it's selective or whatever it is to say. Yeah. So if you have an allegation, right, let's say for argument's sake, I just try to understand.
In summary.
Yes, in summary. So if you have an allegation about, what is a typical example? People FC, I have a soccer team playing at UNAM. Some of these boys that are in the Premier League came from my team. So if you have a problem with People FC, and you need to speak about why People FC is buying a lot of players and all those other things, are you still going to come to Job to complain about People FC, and Job is the one who's buying the players? You see, how does it work? You need to have somebody outside who can investigate People FC, because Job is involved in People FC. Yeah. Is it even something for you to go and brag about that? No, Job is quite on People FC. People FC is Job's team. Yeah. Report People FC, report Job, and do whatever it is. So sometimes it's come from a good place, but also come from jealousy. I've seen, because sometimes the life that we live, we have people who have not accomplished anything in their lives, and they look at themselves and they look at you, and all they can see is envy. But yeah.
Doctor, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming through. I think you've reflected quite strongly on the issues. So thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Yes, that's Dr. Job Amupanda filling us in on his battle against Dr. Kandjii-Murangi, Itah Kandjii-Murangi, the Minister of Higher Education. Thank you for watching.